What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the History of Things podcast. I'm Pat McGuire. Kyle Dalton is going to hang out tonight with us in the co-host seat. Kyle, you've been on this show as a guest 5 different times.
Yes.
Now as a co-host for the first time ever. You know we get off track. I'm strange in a fun and good way here.
Yeah, I think that's part of the podcast appeal, right?
How do you feel now that you're on this side of the table, brother?
I feel empowered. I feel like I could launch a coup and send you to a re-education camp.
We're doing that went hard.
Is that a normal?
No, you're showing more of the guest. I guess not the guest, but the subjects you've talked about on the show. All your relations are showing. All your relations are showing. All your ancestors are showing right now.
All of them.
No,
we've had this conversation.
That's true. But it's really good to have you here. Cheers, man. Welcome to the History of Things podcast. We're also joined by a good friend of yours, definitely a new friend of mine. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest for the first time here to the History of Things podcast and set up our listeners for what today's subject is. You got a book in front of you.
I think even better. So
Flash
we are
book.
Happy to have Phillip Greenwalt here with us today. Famously of the Emerging Civil War Network, I think is fair to say. This is his latest book, Desert Empire, and that'll be the subject today. But rather than having me put words in your mouth, I'd like to hear it from you. Give us a little bit of who you are.
Who are you, Phil?
Who am I?
Who are you?
Is this a philosophical question?
It can be.
How much time do we
It can be whatever you want. What kind of day are you having?
Oh man, we're not. So Phillip Greenwalt. I'm a native of Baltimore, Maryland. Been with Emerging Civil War since 2009, 10, something like that. I have went to undergrad, master's in history, and then started with the National Park Service as an intern in Fredericksburg. Bounced around in the colonial sites. Took some time to go to the Everglades, wrangle pythons, as they say. And,
How
and
was
all
that?
So it was interesting. One of the coolest things I actually found was actually a survey from the future Confederate Secretary of the Navy, Stephen Mallory, who said he had a better chance of surveying the moon than he would of surveying the Florida Everglades.
I like that we were already thinking about the moon.
Yeah. And I also found a sign that said Joseph Johnson, that great Confederate commander, acted aggressively as a junior officer. So weird things in
What?
Florida. Yeah.
Pixar didn't happen, all right? Pixar it didn't
That might be a different
happen.
episode.
I do have the pictures.
Young Joe Johnston.
Yeah, and then came back up to Catoctin Mountain, back home, and a chance trip actually. So the reason I got interested in New Mexico is I had a coworker who moved to the Petrified Forest there in Arizona, and flew into Phoenix, started touring around, went over to Albuquerque, and saw that they still had the guns there in the town that we can talk about a little bit later. And just started developing and realized there's nothing to really guide people to it. There's great books that we have at the suggested reading, but nothing there. So
I'm really excited for this topic because as Kyle and I were discussing before you got to the studio today, like I know only a very small sliver of this whole atmosphere. And I had to ask him because I was like, I don't know much about this story. I was like, does Picacho Peak happen in this world? And he was like, absolutely. And I was like, all right, I know something out here in this part. And I know Glorieta Pass, so I know that some things, but it's like, oh my God. So I'm so excited to talk about this. But I have a question for you since your affiliation with the Emerging Civil War. The font. What is the name of this font? Do you know?
I don't know.
It is the font. It's like, that's how I identify an ECW book immediately. I'm like, that font.
How many of these books have you written?
So I have, this is number 4 in this ECW series, and I have 3 in the Emerging Revolutionary War series. So,
the old wrestling fan in me just came out when you said ECW. I just wanted to challenge you. Like, let's go right now, brother.
That's why I'm glad I'm sitting on this side of the table. So
that's why I tell people, I was like, we are the world champs of historical podcasting. We haven't brought the belts out in a while, but anyway, so let's get into it. So I always say this, when we go from intros into story, it always goes the same way. When you have to begin this story, where do you go? How do you start?
So you actually start with the man on the cover, Henry Hopkins Sibley, who is a native Louisianan, but he is actually a junior officer stationed at a fort called Fort Union. It's now a national park. It's outside of Las Vegas, New Mexico, not Nevada. So not as many lights.
Smart clarification.
Yeah, that's important.
People are like, I came here for different reasons, brother. This is not what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's right behind the big Luxor Hotel. No, it actually is an interesting fort because it's the largest fort between Kansas and the Pacific Coast in the 1850s, right along the Santa Fe Trail.
Wow.
It has a hospital of 1,500 beds. It's got an armory and a supply depot.
Is there a reason it is the 4?
With the Santa Fe Trail there, kind of halfway maybe between Fort Riley and that.
So like a good logistical place to drop something
exactly.
big. Okay.
Right after you get through the Raton Pass out of like Colorado and all that.
Right.
And so Sibley's there and he realizes there's a bunch of supplies. And so he comes up with an idea. First, he's got to resign from the U.S. Army because Louisiana goes, so he goes with it. And then he takes basically a supply list and he hoofs it to Richmond, Virginia, where he talks to Jefferson Davis. What's ironic is that we don't even know what they said because there's no record of that meeting that happened. But Sibley gets a Brigadier General star and the permission to basically raise Texas troops and go to the Southwest.
Whatever was said, it worked out great for Sibley.
It did initially.
Initially.
Yes. It also did, I think Davis greenlights it because in that time of the war, you have everyone saying, I want more men, I want more this, I want that. Sibley goes, there's weapons in San Antonio. I'll raise the men. Just give me the commission that says I can have authority and I'll go off. And so I think it's a high reward, low risk for the Davis administration.
Now, Pat, have you been to the Southwest? Have you been to Arizona, New Mexico?
No, I've been close. I've been to the Texas Panhandle. I've been out to Palo Duro, so I haven't been like close in the way that you would probably consider close, but geographically from where we're sitting right now,
the state border.
I've been out there. I've been out there. I've been out there enough to. I've seen the clay and the dirt turn to the redder colors of life. You get to Oklahoma and it turns very red and things like that. But no, not in the way you're probably asking, Kyle.
So I've been to Picacho Pass.
Yes.
I've been to a small sliver of Glorieta Pass. There was a wildfire when I was out there, so I couldn't go see the rest of it.
That makes sense.
But how would you describe this region geographically? If you were to paint a picture in the viewers' heads of what this place is like, how would you describe it?
Well, first of all, you actually have to get out of the mind that where Arizona, New Mexico is today, the territories are actually horizontal. So Arizona, New Mexico territories, until they figure out the line, that's the map. So it's, I'll follow as the Army goes, as Sibley, because there's a great quote about Sibley as he goes into this area. It's by his artillery commander, a guy named Trevian Teal, who says that Sibley never worried about tomorrow today, which is what you need for a campaign. So, I won't worry about that.
Sounds like a lot of good stuff.
How much change you got in your pocket? We're going right now. We're going right now. So
they front in the first thing as he leaves San Antonio, they got to actually spread the regiments out. They're mounted regiments. So this second, 4th, 5th, and 7th they go. And so they can't even go out at the same time because there's not enough water in West Texas. So you do that. And then you get into what La Cruz says in Mesilla, and you have that kind of that Mexican appeal of the town and so forth. Later on, Billy the Kid is held in jail at Las Cruces, Mesilla. Yeah. Actually, that is the headquarters used by John Baylor. And we have that in the book. So it's used by Baylor, who initially goes out for the Confederacy. And then you have this big tract called the Jornada del Muerto. Probably butchered that because I can't speak Spanish. But basically, Journey of Death as you go through the middle of the state.
We butcher languages on the show. We try our best, right? Perfect. France hates us. We have tried a lot of French on this show.
Didn't you get some comment about that on
we did. Did we try Japanese at any point on your Shimonoseki episode?
I tried some names.
That's right.
That's as close as I was going to get.
Right.
I did say Sono Joy, and I'm not sure if I got that right.
That's okay. So we've gone down. So it just added to the list. We've tried our best.
And then as you get, so you have that arid desert and so forth, and then you get north into the San Cristo Mountains, which are the bottom of the Rockies there, so it gets cold and so forth. So if you go out, I was out in December, warm during the day, sun goes down, it's like someone closed the oven door. And so that's the area they're going through. And so it is that, scrub, desert, they want to stay near the Rio Grande, that's the only water you got. Horse being mounted, now you have the horses that have to eat and so forth. Sibley's goal is, I know there's Fort Craig, I know there's Fort Union, so he's trying to hit spot by spot, which is great, except there are these people called the Federal Army, and they also I
think I've heard of them.
They're like, that's our fort, actually?
Yeah, that's their... Fort Craig is held up by Colonel Edward Canby, who is one of these unsung heroes. Fort Union is going to be held initially by a guy named Gabriel Paul, who actually comes east, and on, I think, the first or second day of Gettysburg is a brigade commander who gets shot behind the eyes. He's blinded on Cemetery Hill. So
wait, so he fights in New Mexico and Gettysburg?
And Gettysburg, yep. He's junior officer, comes, there's a lot of them. Sibley, who else is out there? you have these strange characters. Kit Carson is in charge of a New Mexico regiment.
Heard of him?
You have a guy, Tom Green, not the comedian, just as crazy, because in 64, he's in charge of a cavalry unit during the Red River campaign and decides to charge a gunboat. And David Porter fires a 24-pound shot that meets his head, and Green loses.
I love David Dixon.
Gunboat.
David Dixon Porter's my guy.
So as during the Red River, as Banks and Porter go back toward what is Alexandria, I think it is, Louisiana, as the campaign, the water level's dropping. So Green thinks the gunboat, I guess, ironclad, is stuck. So he comes out of the woods with the cavalry trying to, I guess, charge it or whatever. And all we know is from his staff officer, he says like he was there and the body kept going in the head. Yeah, he got, hit with the ass. And I think Taylor is the one that wrote it, his commander said that he was a little overzealous. And I'm thinking, the understatement of the war, overzealous.
Holy moly.
Wow, we are off to the races already. So we haven't even gotten to the real...
I was thinking about it. I was like, as absurd as it sounds to try to take a naval target with a land mass or a land force, I was like... My brain was like, there's another example of this where something freezes and a ship is taken by cavalry.
Actually, one in the Civil War, too. There's a guy, J.J. Dickinson, who is, they call him the Swamp Fox of the Confederacy. He's Florida partisan, or he's not partisan, he's in charge of the company of the 2nd Florida Cavalry. If you ever get the Confederate military history, he writes the Florida section for that. But he gets a gunboat on the St. John's River that goes up past Jacksonville there. And he starts going up and down the river, having some fun with it until someone tells him there's gunboats at the bottom of it. And that's the end of his Navy career, but he captures it. It's at Horse's Landing. So there's a historical sign that says, here's where he captures it. It's a side wheeler. It's a wooden gunboat, so it's not as impressive, but it's still...
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
takes
it. So
you just ever think, get on the horses, we're capturing a ship. Yeah. Like what?
So he's the greatest cavalry commander you probably never heard
of. I definitely have never heard of him.
And he's born in the same town in South Carolina as the original Swamp Fox, Francis Marion. Georgetown, South Carolina.
You mean Leslie Nielsen. Sorry, I have to just do that.
Who hated parties so much that he jumped out a second floor window in Charleston, and that's how he did not get captured by the British. He jumped out the window, broke his ankle, and then they had to go back to his place.
For a minute, I thought you were describing this guy that way, and I was like, there's no way. Like, that look on my face was, there's no way this guy did that.
So we got a lot of really interesting characters here.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? What were they trying to accomplish by invading New Mexico?
So simply, the goal is basically to create, kind of like throwing a rock into water with the ripple effects. You have, of course, New Mexico, which Sibley believes that it could have and does have loose ties to the United States. I mean, they just been part of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Yeah.
What Sibley doesn't realize is that New Mexicans already hate Texans because they keep coming across the border to try stuff. So let's bring all these Texans with us and say, hey, we're here to throw off the shackles. Now, it does
that remains true all the way from the Texas border to the Pacific. I can attest to that. Because nobody wants Texans in that part.
And it does start decently well. I mean, when Baylor shows up there in Las Cruces, Mesilla, they actually send a representative to the Confederate Congress. The guy, Charles Pyron comes in with what he calls the Arizona Brigands. They raise enough troops. There's actually a 1st and 2nd Arizona Cavalry that go fight in the Red River campaign in West Texas or East Texas and all that. Problem is, Sibley comes and he starts, of course, like what who's a Kirby and Bragg does in Kentucky. They get there and they go, okay, a proclamation. These guys love to send out proclamations, and I'm sure half the New Mexicans are like, what the hell is
are
this?
You talking about?
So, and then he also realizes he doesn't have, so Fort Craig is in ruins today, but you can visit. It's part of the Bureau of Land Management site. And the walls are still thick. And Sibley realized he doesn't have the artillery, so he's going to bypass it. That leads actually to the best story, I think, of this. And the reason we didn't put it on the front cover is that we're afraid PETA would protest our book. And that is the Exploding Mules story.
But you're from Baltimore, and you know how to counter-protest PETA, because you're from the place of the greatest response billboard in history.
It's Mob Town, yeah.
Do you know what we're talking about?
I do know, but our listeners might.
Yeah, our listeners might not know this, that PETA put up a billboard that, was decrying the Baltimore affinity for eating crabs, and so basically explaining that with this picture that this is not food. And some chef, somebody bought a counter billboard, used the same image, but they photoshopped Old Bay onto it, and they were like, there, now it's food. And it is that and Jesse Ventura commenting on the captured flag at Gettysburg. It's probably the greatest responses to anything in history. I don't care. Or maybe the English docent talking about the French cannonballs at Trafalgar. Do you know the story?
The classic HMS Victory docent joke involves a French tourist asking if the cannonballs on board are the original ones used at the Battle of Trafalgar, to which the guide replies, "No, madam, your navy still has those."
Anyway, I just came on a small tangent here, but came across the story how the United States got Guam during the Spanish-American War, that the Spanish didn't realize they were at war. So when the U.S. warship showed up, the guy wrote out and said, "We apologize, we don't have enough powder to fire the ceremonial shot." And the guy said, American admiral was like, "But we're at war." And he goes, "I'll be back."
No, we have plenty of powder. We're fine, actually.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I'd love to be that guy telling your boss, "Oh, I just told you."
Yeah, exactly.
We're done. Yeah. And then I think a few days later, it showed up from the Spanish government that, we're at war. They're like, "Thanks."
They're like, "Yeah, bro, we know.
Yeah.
We know."
Sounds like late stage Spanish imperialism. That checks out.
If you could take a selfie. They're here. Yeah. They're here. Anyway.
We knew we should have turned our phone off airplane mode. No, So Sibley's goal, initially is to get the Fort Craig, can't subdue it.
Right.
So he's going to bypass it. Just leave it. Yeah, we'll just keep going. Don't worry.
But you were saying that his plan was to leapfrog for these forts for supplies, right?
Exactly, but don't worry about tomorrow, today, right? So
again, how much change you got in your pocket? We're skipping this one.
Yeah,
we're skipping Craig, bro. We're going to Fort Union.
So his thought then is, okay, if I can pull him out of Fort Craig, get him up. The next fort is a place called Valverde or Valverde.
We're going to Valverde.
So, but on the way, of course, he's got to camp out. So they camp in one of these little depressions or canyons. And so Canby's got this very forward-thinking or maybe slightly messed up junior officer who decides that, you know what, we have all these mules and we have all this gunpowder and 24-pound shot. What if we put those together?
Oh no!
And the goal is he thinks that with the Confederate mounted infantry or down in this canyon, that he could potentially, if he could walk the mules in there and have them explode, it would blow up part of the corral and scare the horses. So we're not sure if the desert heat or
what's the goal.
So the goal is if he can strand the one regiment of Texas mounted infantry, that maybe they will be out with horses, or maybe they'll stampede.
Oh, so he's thinking we kill the herd.
Or
they're already having trouble with supplies. They didn't take this fort.
Yeah,
they're just all going to die in the desert.
So get them, because we're not quite sure why. We did the research on where this idea comes from. He's just not flipping through Thermopylae, they had mules. Let's blow up the Persians.
I feel like the desert is 1860s Arrakis right now. They're just let the desert do it.
So the only comparison, and this is me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 4, is that one of the small engagements was a guy named Major Isaac Lind, who was in charge of Fort Fillmore out there, and he evacuates, fights a small little engagement, but then tries to retreat through the desert, and his men basically collapse, and the Confederates pick him up. And so maybe that's what this thought is. Hey, we'll get the Confederates stranded because we're between Las Cruces and Sibley's forces, and that way they've got to come back through. So Canby finally relents and lets them go out there. They take 2 mules, that saddlebags full of gunpowder and so on. And they light the fuse, and they have them start walking down the edge of the canyon. Well, the 2 officers turn around and start running up the hill, and they hear more rustling. They're thinking maybe it's maybe the scouts or the skirmishers or whatnot. They turn around, the mules have started to follow them back.
I feel like the Benny Hill music is playing here. This is insane.
Mules are smart and stubborn. They're like, wait, we're supposed to follow you. And it actually works better because as you get up the side of the canyon, of course, they explode, and when it does, the sound vibrates down, and it still runs the horses off. So
it reminds me of the bomb dogs at the Battle of Kursk when the Russians had the dogs They were supposed to go under German tanks and blow up, but they trained them on Russian tanks. So they just ran the Russian tanks.
Yeah. They're like, no, yeah. Oh, man, that's so funny.
One minor hiccup in training.
We didn't think that through. So, all right, so the horses run off. We have this gooey mess of donkey everywhere. This is probably one of the most absurd stories ever told on this show. I love this.
Yeah. I figure that should be like a drinking game, a Civil War drinking game, right? Exploding Mules.
Mule.
This episode is brought to you by Exploding Mule, old-fashioned whiskey and tequila.
At the Hartwig book thing years ago, that should have been a drink there. They should have had a drink called the Exploding Mule.
Yeah. Well, now somebody's got to make it.
God. We're going to do it. The next time you're back on the show, we're going to go to the McCollins over here. We're going to figure out what that drink is, and we're going to make it together.
Got to have a Southwestern flavor, maybe some mezcal or something.
Yeah, I'm just hosting.
Also got to have, bourbon or whiskey, because Sibley is perpetually drunk during this whole thing.
That checks out from everything you've said so far.
So now this story's making a little more sense. He's whiskey drunk and he's in the fucking desert, so his mind is completely gone.
But the issue about to give Sibley a little bit of a leeway is that they gave him medicinal whiskey initially because he's suffering from a kidney or liver ailments. So the common
he's suffering from liver ailment.
So they give him medicine, which makes him worse.
We don't understand why you're getting worse. Yeah. Your liver should be healing. We don't understand the old timey science here.
And I mean, the guy. You got to give the guy credit because he finds whiskey there. He's cashiered by Taylor in '64 because he's drunk there in the Red River campaign. He's kicked out of Egypt because he's drunk with the Khedive after the war. So he finds whiskey.
He goes to Egypt after the war?
Yeah.
Hey, you know how to lose in the desert. Why don't you go lose for us?
I mean, it's not a good area for Confederates in Egypt because he gets cashiered or told, hey, leave or we're going to court-martial you, and then Raleigh Colston gets bucked by a camel and becomes paralyzed.
I love how
he's just spinning into the craziest.
But I love how many times you see these like soldier of fortunes go to European or Middle Eastern wars right after the Civil War, and you're like, no way, that guy's on a camel. Like, it's like, what?
You think Colston survives all this? Then he goes, the camel's like, no, that.
Yeah. Then the camel spits on him just to insult him afterwards.
Not on my humps, no.
So, is he an alcoholic before the war, or does the war like make it happen because he's having a rough time?
I mean, we're not sure when exactly the kidney ailment. I mean,
and he's riding a horse. He's riding a horse.
A lot of those guys, I'm sure, sitting in those posts in the Southwest, like Grant in the West. I mean, what else? You're boredom,
right?
Hours and days of boredom with 10 minutes of excitement when the Apaches or the Comanches ride by or whatever. And so
it's not like they can doom scroll.
Yeah, no.
Drink.
Makes it even worse is when he's at Fort Union. For them to get anything out of the Armory, they've got to send a letter all the way back to Washington to get the quartermaster general to talk to the other one to send the note all the way back. So there's even bureaucracy. I know it's surprising. There's bureaucracy. The federal government.
Wait, with the government? No, never heard that one before.
Like they can see each other across the path, but they got to send it all the way back. Yeah,
that is like such a government thing. It's like we could just do this now. Nay. No. Nay, I need to communicate with Washington. It's like, bro, you're right here. Nay, Washington.
You're on that side, and we're on this side. But
Lord.
So yeah, no, and that's what's awesome about this campaign. Yeah, there's, Exploding Mules. There's drunk Louisianans.
So here's the theme that I've been in the 7 years that I've been doing this show, in the 30 years of my life that I've been like actively looking into the stories of the past. I've learned that when you're focused on the big narratives, the fringe is where the entertainment is, because the Civil War, right? My whole life, Antietam, Gettysburg, Manassas. You get all these battles, things like that. And you kind of stay on those. You go to Sumter, you always focus on that. Appomattox, you focus on that. But then you don't learn about, you don't learn about little murders along the Potomac. You don't learn about the Battle of Shimonoseki, to shout out Kyle's episode earlier this year. You don't learn about how the Union Army combats VD in 1863 in Nashville, and how that's actually a really important story for that theater of the war. You don't learn about this wild stuff happening in what inevitably becomes the Wild West. Like I didn't learn about Picacho Peak until like 6-8 years ago. And I was both humored that it's like 12 guys shooting at 12 guys, but it's also like, wow, this is how far this war went on the land. Like, I know it goes by boat really far and things like that, but on land, they were 3,000 miles away almost shooting
And it's
at
one
each
of the
other.
coolest monuments there in the state park for the column and everything. And what also is fascinating is that how many men pass, of course, through New Mexico going east. Albert Sidney Johnston actually is stopped in Las Cruces for a few days by Baylor as they're trying to organize stuff before he can get farther on. Longstreet is stationed in Albuquerque in 1860.
So
Sherman.
Sherman, yeah.
Commandant of Alcatraz, right?
No, Sherman was he was at Louisiana, what is now LSU. He was the president of Louisiana Military Institute at the time, and that's what he says, like, what have you guys done? You seceded. You can't win this. And he's prophesied in 1860, 61.
So a question I have, just knowing, because I grew up in the Montgomery County, Maryland, borders on Nova region of the world. So Leesburg, Virginia is, a big part of my life growing up. There's a California regiment?
So there's actually
at Bulls Bluff. Do they move through this? Because if it's a logistical hub, would they come through this region?
So basically, it's
and those are Oregonians. They're
Oregonians.
They're from Oregon
because Edward Baker is the first senator, I think, from Oregon, and so these guys are. I don't want to call them ex-bates, but they're all connected. But they're all in Philadelphia,
been from California. It's political, but what I'm asking is, like, did they came more north? They wouldn't have come through the southwest at that point.
So most of those guys that fight at Leesburg are already in the east when war breaks out. They're either in Philly or DC.
Yeah, I'm sure you know about it. It's California in the east. I'm sure you're on top of it. You're on top of it.
Well, there is
you're the ambassador of California.
What is it? James Carlton's California column that is going to get raised and come through.
Okay.
Californians, I know, play a big part in this.
Yeah,
I don't know all the details, but I know they're a big part.
They're part of the pressure that's coming. The Coloradans are the ones that pretty much win the Battle of Glorieta or the Gettysburg of the West, but the Californians are coming, and they're going to push into the area. James Carlton and so forth. Those guys are going from L.A., San Francisco area, basically through the Southwest.
Colorado already a state?
Colorado becomes a state during the war.
Yeah.
It's one of so West Virginia, Nevada, Colorado.
Yeah. Colorado is important. That's one of the other, like, what ifs, like, if Sibley's able to get through the Raton Pass into Colorado, like, why is it important? In 1860, there was about $2 million worth of gold that came out of Colorado. The Confederate Treasury has $2 million in 1861, so you can almost double it right there.
Right.
In addition, for some reason, there's a pipeline from Georgia to Denver. A lot of Georgians had moved to work in the mines and so forth. So just like the Confederates going into Kentucky and Maryland and so forth, maybe they could get recruits, or maybe these people are sympathetic. Sure. So you have that. And that's, I think, what Sibley's goal is, if he has a goal, is to keep going into the next state.
Because I always heard he was headed for...
I feel like he has the concept of a plan.
Right, because I've heard theories that, like, he was headed to Nevada because the silver rush is going on, and then he can just directly get the silver from the mines and bypass Colorado. I've heard that he was going for California in the hopes of getting San Francisco to open a port to bypass the blockade. I mean, none of these plans, if any of them are actually on the table, and you can tell us if any of them are.
So
it doesn't sound like any of them are realistic.
So that's the potential. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, if you think of, like, even Beauregard in the East after, like, the first Battle of Bull Run, he wants to swing around in 2 weeks, go through Western Virginia and all that.
That's very ambitious.
Very ambitious. Sibley's too is playing, I think, a little bit off of, and this is just kind of reading in between the lines, is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so if you have the Apaches, you have these Native American tribes, you also have the Mormons in Utah who have just fought a war against the United States. So if you can make these deals, hey, I'm passing through, I'm not going to stay, the land is yours, you could potentially get some allies. And now if he gets to one of those ports, there is what's called the Paris Agreement in 1857, which the United States does not sign, but they agreed to adhere to it. And it's one of the stipulations is that if you are in a belligerent status, as a blockade is considered illegal in international warfare, if every port is not covered of the enemy. And so if Sibley gets to San Francisco, he can invalidate potentially a blockade, which would give, you think this is February, March, April 62.
That's some big chess. That's some big chess.
Which could convince maybe Great Britain and France, who's teetering on the edge already with the Trent affair and so forth, to have legitimate calls. In addition, he has sent a representative, one of his regimental commanders, into Mexico to work on potentially agreements. Hey, can we chase the Apaches in here, or we're opening up a port through the West Coast to get supplies in and so forth. And so he's already
62 in Mexico, the French are there.
The French are starting, but they're on the way on the other side. They're down in Veracruz.
Right. So he's speaking with the Republican government.
He's speaking,
not the imperialists that the Confederates will get a lot cozier.
He makes contact with the governor of the provinces of Sonora, and I forget the other one. It's Chihuahua. Once again, yeah, there it is. And so basically they go, no, we're not talking to you because we know we talked to you, that we're giving you legitimacy.
Yeah, I don't think Juarez was ever going to back them. That's not realistic.
But so Sibley is sending Jamie Riley, who becomes another great regimental commander, away as part of this campaign. And so
remind me somebody to ask you your thoughts on The Undefeated. The John Wayne movie.
Oh, I have opinions.
Yeah, not now, but just remind right now. You saying that just sounds like remind me that someday I need to ask you about this.
If we're going to talk about a Western, we got to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly.
No, we will.
But takes place during this, right?
But just remind me that I need to take you there.
Yes.
So a question for you. All of this, when we think of the Civil War, we're obviously focused very heavily on the Eastern Theater. When we say the West, we're talking like the wars in Tennessee and Georgia, stuff like that. And that's a very visually easy to understand. It's like Northerners and Southerners, kind of full stop. As we go west, we're moving into the untamed lands of, and I hate saying it like that in quotes, we're moving into where the indigenous people, the First Nations people of our continent still live. So how does that start to become a part of this story? Because this isn't just Sibley moving unmolested on his own and being like, all right, we can't hit that fort or whatever. Like, how does he navigate the fact that he's moving through indigenous lands and people who are navigating their own experience with the federal government and the Confederate government or whatever?
So you see, it's a great question. You see this almost, borrowing a phrase from Kate Nelson, Three-Corner War. You have these Native American tribes are starting to realize, wait a minute, these forts are empty. You also have the Apache and other ones realizing that the borders can help themselves, so they're riding north to south. So if they get horses and so forth into Mexico, they consider them safe. And that's one of the reasons Sibley sends Riley to Mexico, saying, hey, can we chase these guys if they steal stuff? You also have one of these other irregularities is where Federal and Confederate soldiers actually fight a small skirmish on the same side against Native Americans because they've captured some and they're bringing them back to Las Cruces when they're hit with a large raiding party. And
are they fighting on the same side in conjunction, or are they just like happenstance on the same side? So the
Federals are prisoners of war, and they give their word that if you hand us back our rifles, that we will fight alongside you, because otherwise the Apaches are going to kill us all. And afterwards, our word, we will turn our weapons back in and march into captivity.
All right, perhaps the most interesting thing ever talked about on the history of this podcast right now.
And it's I think it's Apache Springs, which is actually preserved as part of Fort Bowie National Historic Site. So
was Kit Carson there earlier? Was there another Battle of Apache Springs?
There's a multiple Apache Springs. This one is just preserved. Yeah, if you go to Fort Bowie, which is a national park site, you can actually walk the path backwards to the fort where the forces were coming from, and you can actually have a little spot.
I am fascinated by this because the only time in my mind that I know Confederates and Union soldiers fight together, they're Fenians and they're invading Canada. The war is over, and the war is over. So in the middle of the war.
So
whole different curveball.
Yeah, 61. So
early war. Started, but whatever. Technically in the middle of the war.
So you have that interesting.
That's awesome.
You also have the New Mexicans are very the territory or the citizens of New Mexico are very indifferent to it. I mean, there's some that show up and play a good role with Kit Carson, basically because it is Kit Carson. He's able to keep them. Other ones skedaddle. There's a small town, Quabello, where there's one federal soldier. I think he's a surgeon. There's a part of the New Mexico militia, and 3 pro-Southern civilians walk in and said, we think you should surrender this fort to the Confederacy. And the New Mexican militia captain says, not our fight, and hands him the keys to the fort.
He's like, whatever.
And so when Pyron comes in a few days later, the civilians go, here's the fort. And Pyron's like, we just rode breakneck speed to get supplies, and all we could have done was walk here and get it. So you have that indifference. Of course, and then you have Canby, who's doing this small scorched earth policy, even though he stays at Fort Craig. And so he's going to send riders out around the Confederate advance to basically take the supplies from Albuquerque and Santa Fe and get them up to Fort Union or out of the way, including his wife, who's in Santa Fe. And she's technically captured by the Confederates, but they treat her as well as any other officer's wife.
We got to be talking small numbers by comparison to what's going on in the East. I mean, right now in the East, there's massive buildups of men happening.
So
So what are we talking?
Sibley's going to leave San Antonio and arrive in Las Cruces with about 2,500 men. He's going to pick up another 500 or so from Baylor.
Much bigger than I thought.
So he's got about 3,000 men. We don't know. I mean, we don't know how many exactly Canby has.
All mounted.
They're all mounted in the 3 Texas
like
mounted
he doesn't
regiments.
have a foot element of infantry.
They will become foot elements, but yeah, they're start off that way.
Yeah.
This feels like that kind of stuff, right?
And then you have the elements, the initial elements of the 1st Colorado that come down, and then they're going to be the momentous battle of Glorieta Pass, which is fought in 3 days, called the Gettysburg of the West. But we fought primarily between mostly Coloradans and 2.5 regiments of the Texas or Sibley's Army in New Mexico, or the Sibley's Brigade. And there's very little U.S. regular troops, but there are some companies there at Valverde. They're at because there's an issue at Fort Union between Gabriel Paul and John Slough, because John Slough, although his commission is with the 1st Colorado, he's a colonel and he's predates Paul's by 3 days, so he's in charge. So Paul is freaking out. I think that's part of the reason Paul comes east, is he's freaking out because Cammy's down in a few hundred miles away. They're building an earthen fort in front of the Fort Union because they're not sure if what the Confederate artillery is going to come. The report hadn't reached that they're only 6-pound mountain howitzers. They're thinking the old adobe wall won't stand.
So there is artillery with them too. This 2,500 men is not just cavalry.
Guy Trevian Teal, who's for some reason this is his only campaign. I researched into him. There's a rumor that he's going to be court-martialed by Sibley, but nothing happens. Those two go after each other because Teal tells it as it is. Teal has the most interesting story, and we're for historic preservationists, we're very glad that he did it. So in the retreat, they're starting to lose horses as they get back toward Albuquerque. So he buries all the artillery tubes outside of town, and then he comes back after the war and basically walks out there. I'm thinking of like Zach Galifianakis' character in Hangover, where he's like,
that's a visual.
They dig him up and they put him in the town of Albuquerque for years, and then New Mexico Museum of History has one on display. And so when I was doing the research for the book, I have her sister and brother. They came. We did let's do a sibling trip, and we got there and they said, sorry, that wing of the museum is closed. And I was like, crap.
Weak.
Yeah. And so my brother goes, the construction thing is you can peel it a little bit and you can see the artillery back there.
Definitely do that.
So my sister's freaking out because she's the rule follower. And so she's the lookout.
You got to do. So you put the rule follower in the worst position because she's panicking.
Yeah, we figured she'll just start yelling or freaking out. And so the picture is in the book. You can see the artillery in the display. So
and the other guns are on the square, right?
They were on the square, but they're all being pulled in now because obviously they want to preserve them and so forth. But there is one still on the square. They're building replicas to go out there and you can see them. But that's the artillery that comes with it. But backtracking a little bit to Valverde, the other interesting thing is that, and that's the picture or painting usually seen, is the last Lancer attack in U.S. military history. Company D, 5th Texas, will charge into the Coloradans, or supposedly into the Coloradans, with lances, which they've gotten from San Antonio out of the armory. Supposed to freak them out or whatever. The Coloradans say, they write, hey, this is awesome. And then they shoot 20 out of 30.
I was going to say, they're like, wow.
That sounds like 1860s era Coloradans, just we get to murder more efficiently.
Yeah. I also feel like it's
they're so chill now. It's what a pendulum swing.
It's a very different culture.
Yeah, no, it's because they legalize weed and they just calm down.
I can almost see them, being high as hell and be like, dude, is that a lance? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bet you can't shoot them. But I'm always reminded of that scene from one of the Indiana Jones where the guy swirling the knife.
Yeah, bang.
So yeah,
that's exactly what that was.
So, but the battlefield is still preserved. It's so unique that you need a high clearance vehicle to get out there, but you can still get stuff off the battlefield from there. The Blue and Gray magazine that unfortunately went out of business a few years ago, saying hey.
I always want to beep that to discourage people not going out there.
How many Lance points can you get?
Yeah, just leave them.
But the issue is to get out. It's not getting out there; it's getting back out.
Get back out.
So do not. I had a.
Just for the record, I'm looking at you. Don't go out there looking to pick up artifacts. All right, leave them there for the people that know what to do with them, so we can remember what's going on.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a douche. We had a guy on our show years ago, a guy named John Bracken, who's talking about France in World War One, and he was talking about how he would go to Zone Rouge, especially where the American lines were, and he was talking about just how these guys just left, and he talked about how just left they were. He entered into a little dugout and accidentally tripped a Mills bomb trap, and he was like, "I'm only here because it had flooded at some point and rendered the grenades inert." But I'm like, "Whoa!" But then I'm also like, "I can't believe that stuff's there." But that's only like 100+ years ago. This is a little longer, and it's like I'm kind of shocked to hear
and it's
that detritus still litters the field.
So it's,
maybe not litter, but it's still physically
there.
there.
And it and just going out, I was in an SUV or whatnot, and I didn't have enough. I didn't have enough hands, brother. Yeah. He's like, I have so many lances in my house. I'm just kidding. No, I brought one in the. There's what is it? Concealed carry is only for guns.
Exactly. Right. You just pull it out. You do what you want, Maryland.
Hillbilly's like, that's what you.
Maryland is like, now we got to write a law. God damn it.
I'm like one of those Beverly Hillbillies. Says, that's what you carry. Look at It works good if you're getting samples at Costco too.
Jesus Christ!
Get a whole ham. But no,
I would do it.
It's what's neat about Valverde is that you still have this ties to the east because it's Texas troops, so they have the same monument there that you see at Antietam and Gettysburg. It's on the extreme edge of the battlefield, and so that's one of the landmarks. And then Fort Craig is really, you go out 8 miles down this gravel road going 5 miles an hour, and then they have a little contact station, and they have a cool diorama inside that shows the entire what the fort looked like, and you can walk out through the ruins and everything. So
like early '61 out here in the east, you do have like a couple of Lancer regiments, but they all like also carry guns. Are these guys on this expedition, are they like standard uniform Confederates, like gray coats and the standard cartridge boxes? Or are these just like...
I gotta imagine these guys look like cowboys.
These are like Texas Rangers. They're so...
Oh, monsters.
Yeah.
So they...
Careful, buddy. I love Lonesome Dove. I love me a couple of Texas Rangers.
Fiction.
I know.
Look at the history of the Texas Rangers and you will not sleep at night.
I know. It's true. Gus McCrae, cool. Woodrow Call, cool. The rest... not so much.
It wasn't what for
Terry's Texas Rangers. Chill with that. If
it wasn't for a Texas Ranger, we wouldn't have the Walker Colt.
That's true. We also wouldn't have the baseball team that Bush used to own.
That paid an exorbitant fee for Alex Rodriguez, but
hey, I root for a team that paid an exorbitant fee for Alex Rodriguez. All right, I'm not wearing my Yankees hat today. All right, I resemble that fact. All right, I know you're.
If Kyle would have told me you're a Yankees fan, I would never have shown up. But
I know this.
I'm from San Diego.
I know because I knew you were an O's fan. Like the one time I have crossed paths with you socially, you were wearing an Orioles hat, and I was like, noted. Noted.
I live 2 blocks right now from Oriole Park.
Look, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you 2 things about me. I am from Maryland. I am a lifer. My dad is a New Yorker. That's how I got my New York team. So go Knicks. This is a very exciting time for us. But I am from the late 80s, raised in the 90s, and Cal Ripken Jr. is my favorite baseball player of all time. So no matter how much I love the pinstripes, my favorite guy ever was the Iron Man.
That was the first day I ever got off. I took leave in the National Park Service was to go drive to Cooperstown and see him inaugurated.
Well, before we jump back in, my wife got for a special baseball trip for me. She got us tickets to the 30th anniversary of the Streak game last season. So I was at the Yamamoto no-hitter that turned into the Orioles 4-run 9th inning walk-off win. I was at that game. That was I kid you not, the best baseball experience of my entire life as a fan. Like, because I wasn't invested in either team. Yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. So at least there's that. But yeah, I am a Yankee fan, and you have to deal with that for the rest of your life. You came here.
Yeah, you got to sometimes do some public service.
That's true. It's true. But we can all agree, Alex Rodriguez made way too much money to play baseball.
So these guys are wearing baseball uniforms.
Yeah. So Doubleday was there. Yeah. Doubleday was definitely there.
Doubleday is like, these guys can play in Arlington.
It's Allegiant Fields. Now it's New Jersey.
Yeah. So there's a certain demographic that Sibley really focuses on, or the recruitment does, and most of these guys are 25 years or younger. They're used to living in the saddle. They're bringing whatever weaponry. They do get some weapons out of San Antonio, but of course, a lot has been picked through already. Earl Van Dorn, Twigs, all that have gone through. Not a lot of them are married. There's not a lot of letter writing because who they're writing letters to. So yeah, they are used to a lot of the extremes. I think that's why they hold up as long as they do, because they do survive. I mean, they're leaving in the late fall of 61, arriving in their gun to March, and by the end of the campaign, less than 1,200 make it back to San Antonio. So,
high casualty rate.
If there wasn't as much Benny Hill in the story as we've had so far, I'd be stuck in the you just told us about this Confederate elite military unit because you're they're all 25 or younger, they're not married, and I'm thinking
they're
it's
used to murder,
and it's they don't have they're all orphans, they don't have parents. It's this is the crack team of we don't care if they die.
There is a Texas has digitized the letters. There's a Major John Shropshire who was unfortunately killed at Glorieta Pass, but he writes a few letters back to his wife and everything like that. And so those are great letters about being on the campaign and so forth. But yeah, there is only one or two accounts from one of the Colorado units at Glorieta Pass. They also have these guys. I mean, John Slough is basically an argumentative person that gets killed as territorial governor after the war. But he's also here in the East. He's provost marshal of Alexandria for a while.
Wow.
He's at Harper's Ferry in 62, not in the Antietam campaign, but in May when Jackson is doing his Valley campaign. And then the other guy, his second command is the fighting parson, or Major John Shivington, who later on becomes infamous when he raids Sand Creek.
Yeah.
And he takes credit for the movement at Glorieta Pass, but it's actually a New Mexican guide by last name, I think, Rojas, that shows him the path that gets around the Confederate left flank. Huh. But once again, who are you going to believe, the white minister or this New Mexican Hispanic person?
And I know that I dunked pretty hard on the Texas Rangers here, but as a Californian, I have to come clean. Shivington is a monster.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff that those guys did at Sand Creek and elsewhere is just shocking.
And a few of the guys who do not want to go forward with it, they actually murder on the way back in Denver. One or two of the guys who says, no, my units aren't going to do that at Sand Creek.
Eastern abolitionist, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they kill him.
Yeah, they're no, we're making the story what we want it to be. But after Valverde or Valverde Ford fought in late February, it's masterful by Tom Green. He's pretty much in charge of it. They start heading north. They capture Albuquerque, Santa Fe. So one of the only capitals, I guess, captured by the Confederacy during the war, besides
Can you do those quotes harder?
I mean, because some people, when I did this talk a few days ago in Gettysburg, they said, well, technically it's a territorial capital. It's not a state capital. So it's not like Lexington or
I also just enjoyed, I know this is happening early in the war, but when you total everything up, it's that just feels like garbage points in the NFL game when, I'm routing you by 40 points and you score. It's oh, you captured a capital? Yeah. Great, buddy. The score is still 42-7, dog. And I know that we're not there yet in the war, and I know that in some ways this was probably a huge deal in the moment.
They hope it is, but it's really...
Oh, maybe it's not
really
even in the moment?
Because they're hoping they're getting supplies and so forth, and they're getting some, but it's not the cornucopia of supplies.
It doesn't even generate a headline that makes noise.
I mean, Sibley will send back dispatches or whatever. He's, of course, doing what every Confederate officer or federal officer does. I've captured this. It's grandiose or whatever, and so forth. But half his troops are sitting up in the mountains, freezing their butts off because it is still early mid-March, and so just like the battle it's Don Alberts who puts the term the Gettysburg of the West, and it's just like the Gettysburg of the East where they bump into each other and everything. It's Byron's brigands coming through Apache Canyon that run into the advance elements of Coloradans coming the other way down the Santa Fe Trail. And so what is neat, though, is the American Battlefield Trust is actually trying to save land at Apache Canyon now. So there's a little spot. So it's getting some love and everything like that. And if I keep saying Gettysburg of the West, I'm hoping that people, Gettysburg, yeah.
Just keep saying Gettysburg. We'll hashtag Gettysburg in the algorithm so that like people searching for Gettysburg will end up here and we'll be like, gotcha, bitch. But now that you're here, stay a while.
It's what, 1700? I figured it out from the Spangler Farm, the George Spangler Farm at Gettysburg to the Gloria Pass battlefield. It's 1,774 miles. So that's how far.
And in 1774, they closed the port of Boston. So now you know all of history is related. Go there.
1,800, I think, and 52 miles to Valverde or something like that.
But in 1852, Kyle's ancestor probably murked the shit out of somebody somewhere in time.
Probably one of them somewhere in there.
I was thinking someone might have asked me that question. Yeah, how far is it from Gettysburg? I was like, so I Googled it, like last thing I did before I went up and talked at the bar.
I love when you get that question and then you're like, who else needs that info now that I have it and nobody else will ever ask you that ever again?
So I'm using it as much as I possibly can. So
that was the outcome of the Battle of Glorieta Pass, because that's, Gettysburg of the West. You get the impression just from that title that it's like the high tide of the Confederacy.
No, that's Picacho Peak, because that's how they build that battle. That's how they build it.
So it's so Glorieta Pass is 3-day battle at the end of March. First day is that Apache Canyon opening engagements. The second day is both sides kind of look at each other thinking the other one's going to attack. And then on the 28th, Scurry, who's in charge of one of the other regiments, he's got a cool nickname too. He's Dirty Shirt Scurry, William Dirty Shirt Scurry, because apparently he canvassed as much as Texas as he could, trying to get them to vote for secession. And he said he was so busy talking to all these counties and so forth that he never changed his shirt. Scurry also comes east.
It's a weird nickname.
He's in the 64 campaign with Smith and who's the Price going to, and I think he's mortally wounded either at Jenkins Ferry or Camden or one of them. So
secession worked out for him.
Do you think his shirt was so foul people just voted for secession to get him to
whatever,
leave?
get the hell out of here.
They're like, brother, what you need to get off my door? I got you. Get out of here.
And that's why the Federals attacked on the third day. They're like, that smells good.
They're like, dude, change your... They're not shooting cannonballs. They're just shooting laundry over at him. They're like, God, here's a shirt. Somebody, Jesus.
They're firing lye soap at him. So as the engagement happens, it's so the picture on the book there is about Palmetto Ranch.
Hold it up there,
which is one of the that's the last charge by the Confederates. They're coming down off the hill toward it, and they're trying to push them through the ranch and then try to capture what is called Kowalski Ranch. This poor guy from Poland is trying to escape everything going in Europe, and he's coming.
What fight are you talking about right now?
This is Glorieta Pass. Well, there's Pigeon Ranch. There's Kowalski Ranch. These are little way stations along the Santa Fe Trail.
For a minute, I thought you just said Palmetto Ranch. I was like, wait a minute. I was like,
that's
65, and that's different.
Guy.
Yeah, sorry. I was like, wait, we get to the part where the wars touch each other? I was like, oh my God.
So
you have to be a part of that episode, sure.
So as they advance down, they see that their supplies, Symington has come around their left flank up around the hill and come down and basically burnt the supply wagons and everything, the camp equipment. And so
they've already skipped forts for supplies.
So now as they're pushing through, and
we're down to 11 cents.
So this final high watermark attack where Shropshire gets killed is successful. They're pushing Slough's men back a few miles toward where their rally point when they realize that their supplies are gone. And so Scurry holds off the attack to turn around, of course, and go back to see what they can scavenge. And then they have to start actually retreating back through there. And that's when the retreat starts pretty much the next morning on the 29th of March. They get back. The last little engagement's in place called Lake Peralta. And we track it through the book, but I mean, there's nothing there except the church and stuff that some of the Confederates were left there. And of course, basically they're straddling back.
So they're leaving their wounded behind. Good sign.
As they can. Things are breaking down. Green's trying to hold a rear guard there. But, horses are dying. Wagons are falling apart. The artillery's left buried in Albuquerque.
What's Sibley doing?
Sibley is
missing. You haven't actually mentioned him in a while.
Sibley misses both. Sibley misses about 90% of Valverde. Shows up at the end of it because he's back in the main column as advance the troops pull. He's nowhere near Glorieta Pass, or he's back at in Santa Fe or Albuquerque. Different depictions of where he's at.
Why isn't he with the main force?
So there's not really a main force. I guess the best way to say it is he's divvied up his soldiers to try to scout. And as Pyron and these what we can't really call them cavalry, they're mounted brigands, scouts, irregular. They bump into the Coloradans. Pyron sends notice back to the closest Confederate commander he can reach, which is Scurry, with the 4th and part of the 5th Texas, and calls them up. And so the rest of the 5th with Greene and the 7th back with Sibley are down in the Albuquerque or Santa Fe region, and so they don't make it to the battle.
I was going to say, this feels a bit like necessity when Washington sends half the force off, because they think they're coming from one way, and then he's like, oh, shit, and he's just got to fight with what he's got.
Yeah.
This kind of feels the same way. He's like, they're kind of shotgun blasted out into this whole region.
Trying to cover. There's a great accounts of some of Surrey's men up in the San Cristo mountains about facing snow and all that. And one of the interesting things, one of those accounts is a guy named Percolis, and he is presumed dead at the Battle of Glorieta Pass. And it's not until way after the war, when they're improving one of the roads near the one of the ranches, that they find a burial trench, and they identify his body because he's got a ring on that has his initials underneath it. And so they move those bodies in the Santa Fe National Cemetery, and there's a small tablet for those soldiers. But and there's still 1 or 2 Coloradans that are unknown that are buried on the battlefield there as well. So there's a few monuments still around. Luckily, the battlefield is preserved by Pecos National Historical Park, so you can go visit and so forth. But yeah, it's one of those engagements. I mean, if Sibley's successful, I mean, the only thing left is Fort Union, and now Fort Union has a small garrison because Slough's basically pulled all the reinforcements, those Coloradans out. If he captures that, does he get into Colorado? I mean, it's those what ifs that armchair generals like to play. But it's
interesting because then Lincoln's eyes have to look a lot further west, and resources, everything have to look a lot further away from the hub of everything, which is right on your doorstep. I mean, it's kind of what Jackson's doing in the Valley, right? Like, I love to shit on Jackson in the Valley because I think, and you were at Fredericksburg for a long time, so you definitely worked with the great Frank O'Reilly, who I stood in his presence and called Jackson overrated, and I watched that man's soul just die. But this is one of the things I was talking about, is like the Valley is both everything we say it is, but then sometimes we don't acknowledge that it's like, I mean, he is taking advantage of like a very disorganized union. But you got to fight who you got to fight. So, but the one thing you can't ever take away is Lincoln has to kind of keep one eye out there the entire rest of the war. So, like, kind of same thing here. One of those big what ifs is like, that's a huge distance and a huge place to keep distracted from like the Lees and the Johnstons and the Albert Sidney Johnsons of the world, who are kind of running these big things right under your face.
Oh yeah.
So that is a big what if.
And everything is connected. If you the Coloradans are destroyed there at Glorieta Pass, they're not available somewhere else. Right. I always
California column's still out there somewhere murdering people for no reason. Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah.
But
they're marching.
Hey, bro, they have work to do.
But I always bring up when people go like, the theaters are not connected or interconnected. And I said, there's a great account in the Red River campaign when Kirby Smith pulls forces away after Mansfield and Pleasant Hill. He pulls the Greyhound, or the division, Walker's Greyhounds, pulls them up, which frees Banks to release a corps of infantry. It's the 19th Corps under William Emery. William Emery makes it to D.C. and fights as part of the 64 Shenandoah campaign. So you imagine if...
Just the knock-on effects.
Yeah, if you imagine Taylor's able to keep Banks in Alexandria with the infantry out there, the 19th Corps don't make it to D.C. Now Early's fighting 24,000 Confederates or Federals with 12,000 instead of 30-some. And so Early makes them move at 3rd Winchester. At the same time, the Federals flank him. Well, although it's cavalry, there's not enough infantry to hold that line. So that what if things have happened as forces get moved, this and that, and so forth.
I think about the international what ifs too, of like Juarez was able to hold on because he got all the way to the border. And if that border is held by the Confederacy, that's a very different calculation. Because Confederacy is friendly to the imperialists.
Or does Napoleon and all them go? I mean, you even look, does they go into Mexico if they're already siding with the Confederacy? Right. Because they have that instead of recouping their losses.
There's so many other things that we can't know.
Yeah. So and I mean, once again, in the big scheme of things, 400 some Confederates get killed, wounded, or captured at Glorieta. There's altogether, 1,800 or so potentially are lost. I mean, I don't like when people say, "Oh, that's not a big battle." Well, if you're the one wounded or shot or captured, that's a big battle.
Bro, preach! I do this at work every day because I talk about this skirmish where like 20 guys shoot at like maybe 8 guys, 10, 20 guys, and And I say, look, in the scheme of the war, when you got Antietam 20 minutes away, Gettysburg an hour, what happens here is nothing. But for the people involved in that fight, that would be disrespectful. Yeah. Because this was their Gettysburg here. Yep, like, you can't say it wasn't. So I love that film. Good job!
And I mean, so it is, and the amount of, we were just talking about all the people that fought there that gained their experience and so forth, to the men that, are still laying in unmarked graves or so forth. I mean, there's so many that we don't know on either side that fought and bled. And I mean, just the campaign, I remember driving from Santa Fe down to Las Cruces, and it took me like 30 minutes to find a coffee spot in one of these small towns and everything. And I'm in a SUV and I'm thinking, marching this way, either on horse or not. I mean, it's a long,
so
long
that's
way.
what another thing I was thinking as you were talking is, like, out here in the East, we have towns and villages everywhere. Even if it's not a major population center, there's populations everywhere. There's huge tracts of land out here where people don't live. And
well, I think maybe would the Apache have been hounding them on their way back? Like, because I don't imagine
battle
the Union
road
would be,
style, like just kind of peppering them as they go.
Right, because it sounds like the back is broken of the Union force, but there's still this whole other faction out there.
Right. Okay.
So the Apache and those Native American tribes are trying to figure out what's going on, because suddenly there are no blue coated soldier around. But you don't really have many. I mean, the sources don't have a lot of interactions or told about, hey, these raids or so forth. And part of the belief is that it's one of those, why raid men with guns when there's empty fortifications and everything else that are easy picking. Yeah. And of course, they're trying to figure out what's going on as well, because no one's telling them, hey, we're fighting a war. We're going to evacuate this force.
We're not focused on you. We have a rebellion happening.
Yeah. Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah. Wait your turn. We'll come back.
Come back.
So, I mean, you have
genocide
that,
later.
You also have, that gets overlooked a lot, is this, how loose these allegiances or ties is to the United States. I mean, this is still 1861, 62. I mean, it's 15 years or 13 years since the end of the Mexican-American War. I mean, these folks, they speak Spanish first.
Their identity is barely American. Probably not even yet.
And they hate the Texans. I mean, Texans have done some filibustering across. A few of the Texans that fight with Sibley have just escaped from jails when they raided over in the 1850s to try to get part of New Mexico. And so, you have this small, it's like looking at Missouri or Kansas or the Eastern Tennessee, these areas that are uncivil war in those areas. And that was important. And then, it's these, I mean, for the Confederacy, the chance of one of the waysides at Goria Pass said was the Confederate Manifest Destiny. And you think about it is, I mean, they get from sea to shining sea. I mean, that's legitimacy. And that's what they're looking for. I mean, Slidell and Mason and them in Europe need something to hang their hat on. Hey, we've conquered the whole South from one side to the other.
Right.
Yeah. I remember there was an interview, I think it was a podcast with Megan Kate Nelson about her book, Three Corner War. And somebody said, you said that this is the most important theater of the war. And she's like, no, I didn't say that. Yeah. I said the war wouldn't happen without the West. We should probably pay attention to what happens there, because that is what this whole conflict is rising up over, the spread of slavery to the West. Yeah. So it would make sense the Confederacy is one of the first tosses of the dice is like, well, this whole thing is about us moving west and getting more land. Let's move west and get more land.
Yeah. I just realized all of this was an introduction to get us to the real heart of the matter, which is this is the meaning of the Six Flags Over Texas theme park. But so what I
didn't want to tell you. I wanted to walk you there.
Yeah, just take us about an hour to get us to that. What I've actually really been enjoying, again, as we're talking, is this also, like, I love how history just rolls into the next thing. This story bleeds to this, bleeds to that. And as much as I don't ever want to give Texas really any love for anything, practically at all, again, your Spurs lost. Go Knicks. But what I'm trying to say is like, I do find this immense fascination in how this whole region, and Texas is a great snapshot of how it goes from this, one culture to the next, to this, we're Mexican, we're independent, we're American, we're Confederate, and the people in the middle of it are somewhat not any of these things and all of these things, and it just how it all happens so fast and kind of overlapping that it's just like, it's such a random roll, and it's fascinating. And then here it is, like, great quote, like, it's not the entire war, but it's important, and without it might not be the main, like Fort Frederick is not really the main cog in any part of its histories, but yet without it, these histories have these big absences and voids that you don't really think about. This kind of feels that way to me.
And that's no, and exactly. You look at guys, I mean, that tie themselves to the West. I mean, Canby will be the highest ranking federal officer killed by Native Americans in any of the wars. He's killed up in the Pacific Northwest. So he's higher ranked than Custer, a Little Bighorn. But
how much of the Confederate forces made up of Native Americans? Because I know that this is the part of the world where we get maybe not this far west, the Stan Wadeys of things, but, we do, as we enter the West, we enter there are Confederate Cherokee and things like that. So
I know Baylor's opinions of Native people, so they're not, I suspect the answer is near zero, but I am curious.
Does it rhyme with zero? It is just zero. It's probably
certainly
just
among Baylor's forces it would be zero,
okay.
because that man was scary.
Yeah, Baylor's zero. I mean, I think the chance of adventure and so forth, San Antonio, you're looking at, this is the first big adventure as well. You want to extrapolate that to the East. I mean, that's why a lot of young men, white men fight for the Confederacy or the North is, hey, this is the big, great adventure. And I mean, this is a chance too. I mean, with that demographic of being younger 20s and so forth. Yeah. Chance to get land, wealth.
It's just like culturally, societally, like, is this one of the effects of the digital age that we are just now starting to look at? Is like, we're so plugged into war. Right? Like visually, like once upon a time, it was, you had to read it or hear about it. You never saw it. Now we grew up, especially all of us, right? We saw, the Persian Gulf War on TV. We saw all the movies we watch, right? And we see it all the time. So the romance of the adventure doesn't feel like it exists culturally the same way.
I think the Civil War is a good bookend. It's the last of that.
Like romance? The way we say the romance?
Yeah, and I mean, and it's the beginning of technology. Like you look at Cold Harbor.
And that's where Matthew Brady...
These battles that they always say you fight the wars of the tactics of the old and technology of the new. So you look at the end of the Civil War, the next major war, the Americans get into World War I. It's all trenches and so forth. And there's an instance, too, that I bring up. It's Lawrence Kite, who's a commander of Confederate or South Carolina regiment. Kite is also the guy who holds back people when Preston Brooks beats the crap out of Charles Sumner. So Kite is these men come up and they're part of the last ditch reinforcements at Lee's army. They're pulling everyone up in 64, and he's got regiments the size of some brigades by the time. And so Kite's going to ride into Cold Harbor on horseback, and everyone's like, "You're an idiot!
What
like,
are you
we don't do this anymore." He goes, "I need to be seen. I need to be like this is." So he's got still this romanticized like.
They're 61. Like, get down, dude.
So he's killed naturally because
understandably
the Union guys can't. They're just like earlier, like I can't believe that. They're like anyway,
and you see that, and you see it like at a small the battle Griswoldville where during the Sherman's march to the sea when they get near Macon, Georgia, the Georgia militia come out and they're marching across the field in perfect parade ground form, and the Federals actually are crying, some of them, because they're telling these young men, young boys and old men to like leave because they don't want to shoot them, but they're marching across like in this heroic thing, and of course they got to shoot them because they're coming for you.
They're like basically like stop. Like if you come,
they're yelling,
and then they're like, and they got to do
they're
it.
They're yelling, stop, go home, stop, and all this.
It's
and
like
finally,
that scene in Black Hawk Down.
So I mean, it's those. Yeah. So you see, I think it's the end because technology is overstepping
and
things,
I appreciate
and that's
you sharing
what
that.
Technology I think is today. Is that as technology advances, we think okay, war is like a video game, or war is this like. If you think we lost 5,000 men in combat operations between 01 and 08 in Iraq and Afghanistan, that's how many men fell at First Manassas in one day. We didn't kill and wounded. So, I mean, you extrapolate, could we have survived?
With a smaller population.
Could we have survived 8 to 9 million casualties, which is the equivalent of what 750,000 was back then? You would not have an administration that could survive 9 million deaths.
So this thought kind of comes from and we all exist in this space. When you're away from the podcast mics, when you're away from writing books, and you're literally just like put yourself in your car by yourself, radio off. You're just with your thoughts. One of my with myself thoughts is just this. The concepts of linear and exponential growth, and I think about how civilization kind of exists in this very like linear, slow evolution, and then how technologies have kind of put us into this exponential growth of things, and so the concept of the romantic adventure it's around in a lot of ways for centuries.
Yep.
And then it just evaporates over the course of like what would be now like 160 plus years, right? This is like the Bradys and the Gardners and not even just Americans. Like people are photographing Crimea and other wars. We're starting to see things internationally, but it's just like I wonder when it wasn't World War One is probably when it happened, when we saw the trenches and the death as fully as that, and we went, oh my God, this is not sexy in any way.
Well, I think there is a segment of society where that's still true.
Well,
there's always been a group of guys that watched John Wayne's Green Berets instead of the news. There's always going to be the group of guys who play Call of Duty instead of seeing horrific drone footage from Ukraine.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, and and it's interesting because, it is that, war is, look at us. They don't see, like, even Eastern Ukraine, the Donbass and all that. There's these guys in trenches and everything. And I wrote so I went back because I'm a nerd. I went back for a second master's in international affairs and leadership.
My man.
And I wrote, why does Ukraine matter to the United States? And I said, because there's some rallying cries that we think that remind us what is best about our revolution. I mean, as they hang out in Sevastopol and Mariupol during the winter, that's like our Valley Forge. When the Snake Island says, go F yourself, that's like Nathan Hale, I only have one life to give. Yeah. Zelensky and Reagan both are actors turned. Maybe they will take down the Russians, but there's the symbolism that it have it.
One of them actually fought the Russians, just to give Zelensky some credit.
But the other thing, and you're talking about like this idealism or whatever, like this romantic, like just go. And so I got in my head that this year will be the 250th of the first time the American flag is recognized in a foreign port. And it's November. It's the Andrew Doria, and it's this island called St. Eustatius. So I can't get there in November, but on July 5th, I'm going to St. Eustatius, which is an 8 square mile island. So I got to fly to St. Martin, and then I got to take a hopper flight. And I'm staying in a place called the Old Gin House, which is right below the fort that still stands there, that cool. Fired the shot that recognized. So you're going there, like, why? And I was like, because, like, it's this adventure. And they're like, well, isn't there a better island? Yeah, there's better islands to go to. But, I mean, it's a 8 square mile island that's got 3 forts. And, I'm just, it said like, hey, that adventure, that to go and so forth. And I think that's the thing that we get so tired, like, I didn't check Yelp reviews. I didn't check. Yeah. I know it's a Dutch island, so I'm hoping the Netherlands are still in the World Cup. So it'd be cool to sit there.
Yeah. That'd be pretty rad.
And everything. But it's one of those things that, this, that gets lost because we check up everything and we can't go no adventure. I mean, I remember as kid, we'd ride our bikes and figure out where someone was at. Like, we could have been dead for 8 hours before our parents found out where we were.
I was just talking to my wife about this with our kids. I'm like, our kids are so bubble wrapped. I'm like, it was come back at dark. But anyway, I digress.
So, I mean, that's the thing. And I think if you extrapolate that back to like, these soldiers and so forth, I mean, a lot of them in Texas are already the adventure to get to Texas because, I mean, they've come from Kentucky, Tennessee, or so forth. Yeah. And now this is the other adventure. But it also, too, is one of the things that attracted me to history always is not, it's like the social, the bottom up. And so like my history master, I looked at the first Maryland during the Revolution and what made those guys fight. There's 20 guys who survived Brooklyn and Guilford Courthouse. What do we know about them? And same with the Civil War. Like, there's a Lee and a Grant and all that, but who are the guys that followed the Sibleys? Who are the guys that stood at the Rappahannock when it's freezing and so forth? And then why did they do it? And what they persevere and what were they paid for? And I say that's what I think relates. And when you can bring those human elements out, and that's what we try to do in this book, that this is a campaign like that, because we tend to think that history is one square to next square and everything's in black and white. But their lives are gray, just like our lives are today.
No, it's a rolling experience. So again, as you were talking, we just had Anne-Marie Carolason on the show, and she was quoting a historian. Forgive me, I'm blanking on the name, but they talked about how the ripples of the revolution are still kind of reverberating across the globe today, and in how they kind of describe that when combat ends, they're like the opening act has concluded, but the American Revolution still persists. So going back to what you're talking about with like Ukraine and like why it matters, it's like I told somebody recently, I never thought that the 7 Years' War, French and Indian War, would be the most important war that relates to my life, because World War II and all these other things, you could draw these like, well, obviously this, like, there's no enslavement traditionally in this country today. Well, the Civil War, you could draw these but like that moment in the 1750s and 60s where England and France were figuring out North America and then it spreads globally, like that ripple is spreading, because that ripple becomes our revolution, becomes this country's revolution. Everybody knows I love my Irish history. 1798 does not happen without these stories. The 48 rebellions that go all through Europe don't happen. It's just like, it's not these blocks. It's just this like rolling thing. James Earl Jones, man, he said it. It's an army. It's our country, but history is really just an army of steamrollers just rolling.
Yeah, that's there's a professor and historian at the University of Maryland. He's English trained, English born American trained historian. Richard Bell. He just wrote a book called the Fate of the American Revolution and the Fate of the World, and he talks about those ripple. And we had him on the Emerging Revolutionary War. We interviewed him, and he was saying that if you talk the French and Indian War through the War of 1812, you can almost call it the first or second 100 Years War, because of how far they fight. But he goes, you don't really like the ripple effects of what the American Revolution, like the last battle, and one of the allies of the United States was the Kingdom of Mysore. Right. And that's why we name a ship after him. Chinese opium pickers will dump it into the water.
Which I can't imagine what the fish of the whatever river they made. Whoa, they were having a great time. They were the slow stuff.
Like, why are we so slow today,
but like the Empress of China is the first ship to come back, and we paid for some of the war debt by getting Chinese tea. And it's just like, so you have these ripple effects, and they go through, or even, the Irish history, the Fredericksburg, where they fed troops or fed the food off of those things, and it came up. It's just one of those, it's those connections, and there's, that comes together. And so it's always the American Revolution touched this thing off. And the French were, I love the Thomas Jefferson and James Monroe stories. Like, Jefferson, isn't it great what the French are doing? And Monroe's like, no, these guys are crazy. Like, you were over here when it was cool. I'm over here when they're chopping heads off.
Dude, he is wild right now, dude.
This is a revolution.
Time to get out. We should have helped them because they are pissed.
Yeah. Like, we might have, did we bankrupt them? Like, maybe.
No comment, bro.
But no, it's one of those, the other neat thing is, they call it the 3 threes that changed America and affected Native Americans, and it's 1763, 1783, 1803. All signed in Paris, all affected Native Americans, no Native American there. So the treaty then, the French and Indian War, the treaty then, the American Revolution, and the Louisiana Purchase. So 3 threes all in Paris, and that changes the entire eastern to Mississippi seaboard, and it's just crazy how those things affect it. And that's why I think, like, if you were writing a fiction book, you wouldn't be able to make that up, like, there and so forth. And so I just thought that was that cool.
Well, I love that because it ties back to this. It's like the ripples of things. It's like we might not have seen the moment the pebble got dropped in the pond, but like if you study the Civil War, you can't not register that this stuff is happening, because they have to plan for, like, we can play the what if game in a fun way, but Lincoln has to play the what if game in a real way. Like, what if they do accomplish these things? Like Henry Halleck and who's the guy before Halleck? But like they all kind of are. But like Edwin Stanton, and I meant to say who's the guy before Stanton, but like Cameron, right? Thank you. But like they all have to kind of figure out Gideon Wells. If they get to the port, this becomes a naval problem also. So like, how do we? That's a very real ripple that you don't readily see the pebble drop, but. No. We got to know it. They're
fighting a rebellion. They're trying to run a country. They're trying to get people overseas for post and embassies and so forth. You don't know who's loyal, who's not. These guys are coming.
I'm excited to read your book, man. Like, I'm super excited to read this book.
Where can people get this?
Yeah.
How
do you make the most money off of it? Answer it that way.
So they come to one of my talks, or they come to the ECW symposium, or I don't want them to hunt me down because it's always I've actually sold a book in the Thurmont post office because I was mailing books out, and the guy was like, my brother-in-law is a history guy. Can you meet me out back? And I'm like, if you weren't a postal worker, this would be weird.
People in Thurmont want you to meet you out back. Be very careful, brother.
I was like, there's cameras, right?
You know that town's reputation. Be very careful.
But so that's or through Savas Beatty or wherever. So I do get the royalty checks. But I put up all my talks on the Emerging Civil War site, the Speakers Bureau, and so forth, and I bring books with me, and so forth. But
you're a small business. Support a small business, man. Yep. Like, put as much money in his pocket as you can, right? Let's do it.
I appreciate it.
Support the work.
And it is, and then go out and visit the sites. That's what's cool about this book. And in the back,
take me with you.
Yeah, there's a suggested reading because there's some great big books. One of them, unfortunately, Martin Hall. I think he actually got was killed in like an armed robbery of his house or something. So I mean, even the people writing these histories are but we have it in the back. I mean, Donald Fraser, who's done great work with he has a Empire in the Southwest, but he's also written a whole quadrille books about what happens on the other side of Louisiana or the Mississippi River during the Vicksburg campaign all the way through the end of the war. So it's the only books. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there are some great histories out there, and our goal is to get you to those and everything. So,
well, very excited. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Do you have any do you do public history with like we have the podcast? Do you have any place people can follow along with the work you do, or do you have any place they can come engage with you, like speaking engagements coming up? I'd say from August onward.
From August onwards. So yeah, if you're Virginia Beach, I'll be at the Civil War Roundtable there. The emerging Revolutionary War tour up in Saratoga. The emerging Civil War, emerging Revolutionary War sites. You can interact, and every other Sunday we do a Rev War Revelry on Facebook, where we started during the COVID and thought it'd be done, and when COVID kind of ended, now we do it every other Sunday, and it's a chance to interact, and we put it on YouTube, and we have our own podcast channels. Nothing like this. We all do it. We do it free. We basically just copy everything over.
Free.
Yeah.
This is
this is why we do it, because we love the share of history, and so we do anything from we'll have to actually have you on. We do anything from French and Indian War through War of 1812.
Awesome.
So we started as Historian Happy Hour because we couldn't get out and drink beer and sit around, and then we've continued for 6+
years.
There are
so many. This show got started in that same environment. Historians on Tap, our friends Travis, Anne Marie, all of them started that. Same to you guys. Like, it's so awesome how many things came to life in that moment that are still around.
And it's crazy how many people that are like, how do you make money? Well, we do it for the love of history.
Yeah,
and
how do you make money? I don't know. I don't make any money.
Yeah, and they're like, wait, you just do, it's such a novel concept these days that we do things for free.
So people look at this set and they assume I make money. I'm like, look, guys, there's two things at play here. One, I'm hyper creative, and two, I have this I can't look shitty.
Yeah.
Like the film quality because I can't afford nicer cameras, but I'm I can control the set. So it's I don't make any money off this. I love this. I started this before I was a park ranger and doing interpretation, and now that I do it for a living, I'm still doing it off the clock because I'm here for the love of the game. But I gotta say, Dana Shove came on our show and very, very much put us all on blast because he said, we're all lying, we're all here for the money. Because he talked about how much money we all make as historians. So just wink, wink. We are all loaded rich. That's why we're here. But
I found that gold in Colorado that Sibley was, I'm
not going to lie. When I was
one that Clint Eastwood did.
When I was at Paladero Canyon, I was like, I do wonder if there's Confederate gold out here. I did have stupid thoughts like that. So
if they had gold, they would not be sending it into the desert.
No. They'd be like, we need to use it.
Florida with Davis's wagon train, right?
Right. We need to use it.
Or on that ironclad in Africa by Clive Cussler.
That's true. That's true. Follow the History Things podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube by searching for the History Things podcast. You can catch up with Kyle Dalton 1,000 times a season on this show going forward, I'm pretty sure. We love having him as a guest. And, dude, it's been a lot of fun having you as a co-host of this show.
Yeah.
You're a
the
natural.
usurpation didn't happen, so I think that it all worked out in the end.
You are a natural. You are natural Skippy peanut butter, brother. Fully creamy. Good job. Appreciate having you here. For Phill Greenwalt, for Kyle Dalton, I'm Pat McGuire. This is the History Things podcast. We'll catch you all later.
Adios, amigos.